Now let's solve the Natas level 27. First of all, let's log in with the credentials. On logging in, we can see that we have two input fields, username and password. Let's try some random inputs like test and 123. On pressing login, we can see that a user test was created. So if the username already does not exist, a new user with the username is created. Now let's check the source code to check the further functioning of the page. Over here, we can see that it first of all checks if the request has a username and a password field or not. If it contains these fields, it connects to the MySQL database and then checks if the user is a valid user or not. If the user is not a valid user, which means the username does not exist, it creates a new user. If the username exists, it calls the check credential functions to check if the username and password are correct or not. If the username and password are correct, it calls the dump data function to print the data of the username. Then if the password is not correct, it shows wrong password for user and shows the username. Now what we will use is that in the MySQL, a character field of table has only 64 characters. So in the valid user functions, it selects from the table where username is equals to the input username. So we will input a username which is longer than 64 characters and this will return false. So a new user will be created. When the new user is created, it trims the username. Trim basically removes all the spaces from the front and back of the string. So we cannot use only spaces to increase the length of our username. If we use only spaces, then we will be shown a message, go away hacker. So we will have to add an character at the end of the string. Then the new user will be created. In the dump data function, we can see that the data is fetched using a select statement which ignores the extra spaces which are put at the end of the username. So even if the username is 64 characters long and the end of the characters are all spaces, it will still show the output of the user without the spaces. So we will use all these properties to create an extra username which will help us to get the password for Natas level 28. So we will use a string having first 7 characters as Natas 28. Then we will have 57 white spaces to complete the 64 characters, and then we will have an extra character of any character of our choice. I will be using an extra character as X, and when we check the valid user, it will show false as the length of the character is greater than what is expected, and then it will create a new user. When the new user will be created, the trim function will be passed as it does not end with spaces, and a new user will be created, but the new user will only be created with the 64 characters, so the X will be removed automatically. Then the dump data function will use a select statement which ignores the spaces. So the spaces of R created net as 28 will be ignored, and the contents of the Natas 28 originally existing will be shown to us, which will be the password for Natas 28. So let's go to the main page again. Over here, we will input Natas 28, then 58 white spaces, and then an X. As you can see, I have put 57 white spaces and an X at the end. I will put the password as test and click the login button. Over here, we can see that the user Natas28x was created. Now let's again go and log in. This time we will remove the x from the end. It will become Natas28. Then we will again log in with the password test. On logging in, we can see that the password for Natas level 28 is shown to us.